Kia ora and welcome to the Huddy Hui, episode 115. And before we play our interview with our guest tonight, I thought it to be fitting that we remember the life of Connor Garden-Bachop. Connor Garden-Bachop, Wellington Lion, product of Scots College, played for the Highlanders this season, who sadly passed away earlier this week at the age of 25. A very sad time for the Wellington rugby community and also New Zealand rugby. Someone that knew Connor through college rugby and got to know him quite well is a regular on Huddy Sports. Adam Julian is called in to the Hui early this evening. Adam, how are you? And it's been a pretty tough week for the rugby community.
It has been a hard week, Brad, because Connor Garden-Bachop was loved and adored by many, not just in Wellington, but nationwide. Connor Garden-Bachop was one of those lads who had the twinkle in the eye. Brad, you're a school teacher, and the twinkle in the eye is something that indicates fun, but it's also slightly dangerous. It can be slightly irritable, but we all love it and like it. And Connor Garden-Bachop was one of those personalities who, when you were around him, there was always a sense of joy, a sense of excitement, and obviously he was a prodigious talent from a famous sporting family. His funeral will be held next Tuesday at the Linwood Rugby Club. There might be some curiosity about that, given that Connor played most of his rugby in Wellington, but Dad Stephen, Uncle Graham, both All Blacks, and the cousins Aaron and Nathan Major, who were All Blacks, all played for Linwood. So fitting that Linwood buries Connor Garden-Bachop, who first came to my attention when he was at Scots College in year 11. He made the 2014 First 15, which went on to win the national top 4 title. He wasn't a regular at the start of the season, but he quickly worked his way into a lineup that included TJ Va'a, Peter and Thomas Umaga Jensen just in the back line, even before mentioning Alex Fido and Henry Mexted in the forwards. And Garden-Bachop improved rapidly, and by the national top 4 final, he was one of the most influential players. He scored 2 tries. The second was an absolute thriller from an opportunist knock on from a charge down, and he scampered the best part of 60 metres to score that one. It was 26-all, that national top 4 final in 2014. Scots were playing Hamilton Boys High School, who were the reigning national champions, and Connor nearly won the game as a year 11. He made a screaming break up the middle of the pass. He had Joe Boswell to his right and Thomas Umaga Jensen to his left, and he chose to pass to Thomas, as most would in that situation, but Joe was unmarked, and unfortunately Connor threw a forward pass. But to have such a profound influence at such a young age on a game of that stature is really extraordinary. There aren't many players in the history of the national top 4 final who have scored 2 tries. In fact, there's only one who scored 3, and that was Casino Doyle for Auckland Grammar School against Napier Boys High School in 1992. And the last player to score 2 tries after Connor in the game was this year. There were 2 lads from Westlake who accomplished the feat. So that's a decade after Connor scored 2 tries as a year 11 in the national top 4 final. But of course Connor's school career was only just starting. Later that season, Scots were runners-up to Rotorua Boys High School at the Condor Sevens. Connor scored 6 tries in that tournament. In 2015, I interviewed him at the start of the season, and I asked him, how could you possibly repeat what you achieved last year? And he smiled and he said, well, by having fun, obviously. And boy, did Scots have fun in 2015. They made it all the way back to the national top 4 final, 24 games, 20 wins, 126 points, and Connor scored 20 tries in 15 games and was absolutely spectacular. And then in 2016, he was the captain of the first 15. That team had a rather shock loss to WRFU College in a quarter final.
That's right.
It was a different format for the premiership back then, but that didn't hinder Connor's individual ambition and success. He was selected in the New Zealand Barbarians team, who played twice in Auckland against Australia schools and Fiji. There were 4 future All Blacks in that New Zealand Barbarian side, including Quinn Tupaia and Lester Whaianuku. TJ Tupovai was also involved as well, and Connor was one of the absolute standout players against Australia. He made a 40-metre break at Mount Albert Grammar School just before half-time to set up a try for Lincoln McClutchy, familiar face in the Hawke's Bay. And Australia had a strong team that day. Hunter Paisami scored a try. He's now a centre in the Wallabies. And the next game they played Fiji schools at Auckland Grammar School, and ironically Connor Garden-Bachop proposed to Mosi Tamatanawai, who was his teammate later in the Highlanders, and that was a wild game where Connor looked more Fijian than the Fijians themselves. It finished with 12 on the field for Fiji, and New Zealand naturally won with such a huge advantage numerically by 46-20. Connor was just fantastic that day, made a number of breaks and set up tries. Caleb Trask ended with 20 points. So that was Connor's very decorated high school career, and then obviously he was destined for greater things. So he went to Christchurch, and he actually played for the Lincoln Club.
That's right.
Won a Metro title in Christchurch in 2018. He came back to Wellington in 2019, won a Jubilee Cup final with Northern United, played again for Norths in 2022 when they won the Jubilee Cup. Connor sat out the final, but he was involved in the semi. In that 2019 Jubilee Cup run, Brad, we called the famous semi-final at Lyndhurst Park.
Oh, did we what?
Where Norths rallied from oblivion to win, and Connor Garden-Bachop, right in front of the Lyndhurst Park clubhouse, fended off 3 players and scored a thrilling 30-metre try. He really was a player that had a fearless approach, blessed with such natural speed and opportunism. But more importantly, when reflecting on Connor Garden-Bachop, is that personality, that infectious smile, and that warm nature that he had. My favourite personal memory with Connor Garden-Bachop happened in 2016 at the Beehive, and listeners are probably wondering what the hell was Adam Julian doing at the Beehive. Well, they had a thing that year at Scots College called the Presbyterian Quadrangular Dinner. They have an annual tournament involving St Andrews College from Christchurch, Lindisfarne College from Hastings, and St Kentigern's College from Auckland, and Scots. And Scots hosted the tournament that year, and the dinner, which I was invited to, was at Parliament in the huge banquet hall area. It's the first time I've been there. It's so far the last time I've been there. And anyhow, as part of the Presbyterian tradition, they have a ceremony which is called the sacrifice to the haggis. Don't ask me why it happens. It happens. And so they summoned the 4 captains to the stage, one of whom was Connor Garden-Bachop, and there was a gentleman who performed a Robbie Burns poem dressed in a kilt with a rather ostentatious sword. It was quite a spectacle, and Connor Garden-Bachop just could not keep a straight face. He was trying so hard to refrain from laughing, and it was a potential disaster for Connor, because staring at him was Steve Chew, the president then of the Rugby Union, the 4 headmasters, and a whole bundle of significant people. So what did Connor do? He just pivoted quietly inside the 10-foot-high red curtain that was beside him, and only a few people noticed that he'd disappeared, and the giggles underneath the hands became more conspicuous. And anyhow, when Connor sat back down to the table, there was another speech, rather like being at a rugby club, Brad, where the speech drags on a little bit and people's attention diverts towards the bar. So I decided to venture to the bar, and Connor was at the back of the room, and I couldn't resist. I whispered in his ear my favourite Robin Williams line about Scotland. I said, Connor, you know, in Scotland, violence is foreplay, and I dashed off, and he burst out laughing and briefly held up this speech. And every time I used to see Connor, whether it was at a Norths match, a Highlanders match, a Wellington Lions press conference, we had a laugh about that. That's the kind of boy Connor Garden-Bachop was.
Yes, and it's a massive loss to New Zealand rugby. Adam, thank you for your thoughts, and we'll talk soon.
Take care, everybody.
So that is Adam Julian, who for a long time covered all the stats and statistics on Facebook for Sky Sport First 15 Rugby, and he got to know Connor very well, and those are some of the fascinating stories there that we have heard about who Connor Garden-Bachop was. A twinkle in the eye, a character, and full of energy, and we sadly lost, not only here in Wellington and all that, but throughout New Zealand. Our condolences to his family and all those connected to him, and in particular his club, Northern United. Well, earlier this week I caught up with a colleague of mine who I worked with out at Whitby Collegiate, former Black Fern, at the test level and at Sevens, won a silver medal with the Rio Olympics and a World Cup a few years after that. Shakira Baker I caught up with on the Huddy Hui earlier this week as they prepare for their Izzy Ford Cup Final. Paremata-Plimmerton she plays for against the combined Porniki OBU side. So sit back and enjoy our interview with Shakira Baker. Alright, so we go 3, 2, 1. We're here with Shakira Baker, who's preparing for Paremata-Plimmerton's Izzy Ford Cup Final this weekend. Shakira, many thanks for coming on the Huddy Hui tonight. How's your season been with Paremata-Plimmerton so far?
Yeah, it's been going well. I joined quite late in the season, so yeah, just been getting amongst a new club, and yeah, we've gone well so far.
And how did the move to Ngāti Toa come about this season?
I guess I've recently moved to Wellington, and have started a new job at Whitby Collegiate, and yeah, just heard through the grapevine through Matt and G at Paraplim if I wanted to come and have a look at the club and things, and it was close to school, so yeah, I thought I would go take a look, and yeah, haven't turned back.
You recently spent some time over in Japan. How was your time there with the Pearls? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I spent 2023 over in Japan playing sevens and 15s, and really enjoyed it. It's something that I've always wanted to do. It was always on my bucket list, and yeah, managed to get over there. It wasn't a very successful sevens season, but we made the final for 15s, and yeah, unfortunately lost in that final.
How does rugby in Japan compare to women's rugby in New Zealand?
I guess they have a professional structure that they follow, which is quite similar to New Zealand. But I guess just because they're such small people, it's a different style of rugby. You have to be a lot fitter, as they never give up sort of attitude, and they put all of their effort into pretty much anything they do, and they, yeah. So I guess how it differs from New Zealand is the fact that they have to work a lot harder, but they're such hardworking people. It's not as physical, but I guess it's the fitness that probably you need to be a little bit fitter over there. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was a cool culture to be involved in. I had heaps of fun, and Pearls is such an awesome club to be, to have gone to.
As you mentioned, you've moved out and started teaching at Whitby Collegiate and this year. How have you found teaching at Whitby, and did John Fiso twist your arm to come over?
Yeah, I guess it was coming into that transition period of rugby career. I'm sort of at an age where, I sort of had to look at a future and things, and I just happened to cross paths with John in Japan, and just got an amazing opportunity to come and meet Shelley earlier when I came back after sevens, and I think it's a different lifestyle that I'm sort of getting used to again, but I'm enjoying the challenge of teaching and everything that comes with it, and I know that Whitby is such a small knit school, and the staff has been really helpful in helping me with that transition. So and they've been really supportive with me still playing rugby as well. So I'm enjoying it.
What's the connection with the Pearls and Whitby Collegiate? Because I believe there's a bit of a relationship there.
Yeah, I'm not too sure of the exact connection, but I know that it's through John and our general manager and Pearls who have been lifelong friends, I think it is, and our general manager in Japan was over in New Zealand, did a stint in New Zealand and played for Petone Rugby Club and things like that. So he's been involved in rugby himself, and was lucky enough to come to New Zealand, experience it, and is doing an awesome job in developing women's rugby at the Pearls as well.
You grew up in the Wairarapa. Tell us about growing up over the hill.
Yes, I grew up in a small town, grey town, over the Rimataka Hill. I loved it. I guess the quiet, not many people around, growing up with family, growing up not far from my marae. Went to Wairarapa College, and I loved growing up in a small town.
You originally actually played hockey growing up. How did the switch to rugby union come about?
I played hockey throughout my younger years, through school, through high school, and I guess it wasn't until year 12 I was boarding at Wairarapa College, and our hostel manager asked me to come and play in a tens tournament. And I thought, oh yeah, I'll give it a go, but it was my dad who didn't really want me to play rugby. He said it was too rough and things like that. So he was pretty strict on where he wanted me to play, and he said that you're not allowed to be a forward, you're only allowed to be a back. I guess that was my first taste of rugby, was a tens tournament, and back then they didn't really have school teams or anything, so if you wanted to play, you sort of had to play women's rugby. And then my lady Rebecca Mani took me under her wing and started taking me to Ikarahuna Rugby Club, and along with her to trainings and playing club, and then from there just managed to go further in rugby than I did hockey, and so decided to put down the hockey stick and pick up the rugby boot.
There's a bit of a family connection with rugby in the family. Tell us about that.
Rugby's always been a big part of our family. My brother Cyrus, he made New Zealand secondary schools. My cousin Billy's first cousin, he's New Zealand sevens rep, Hawke's Bay NPC rep as well. And then also my uncle is a Māori All Black. Runs deep in the family.
You mentioned Rebecca Marnie and Eka Tahuna, who you played club rugby for. How was it playing for a club? And you had to do a bit of travel as well because you played in the Wellington Women's competition at the time.
Yeah, I guess yeah, I have a lot of lot of thanks to Rebecca for being pretty much the Uber driver. She would she would pick me up from hostel, take me across the hill to trainings, drop me back off at hostel, go back all the way to Ikirahuna. Yeah, so really I didn't really have to do much but just be there on time for pickup, and she pretty much made sure that we got to where we needed to be, and she was also an awesome trainer, and I have a lot of my rugby career to owe to her. So yeah, she was definitely a big part of my rugby career as well.
And while playing for Ika Tahuna, you made the Wellington Pride. Who was your debut against, and do you remember the result?
I don't know who my debut was against, and I don't remember the result. It was yeah, no, I don't actually remember. Yeah.
And of course, at age 17, you earned a Black Ferns trial and narrowly missed out on the World Cup squad. What did you learn from that experience at such a young age, being thrust into that environment?
Yeah, I think it was a big stepping stone for me. Like I do remember attending that camp, and it being a pinnacle event trial and things like that. And just coming from a small town surrounded by amazing women, I was sort of knew I was way out of my depth, but at the same time also made me want to achieve and be in that team. Um, yeah, so I got the phone call that I didn't make it to World Cup, and as much as I sort of knew that I wasn't going to make it, I still was upset because I don't know, it was just high expectations of myself at a young age, and I guess wanting to make it because I wanted to make my family proud and things like that. But yeah, I made it my goal that I definitely wanted to continue and to pursue rugby and get a black jersey. Yeah.
And that came in 2011. You earned your Black Ferns call-up. Who was your debut against, and what was the experience like pulling on the Black Ferns jersey for the first time?
Yeah, my debut was against England. It was the year after the World Cup, and I was so excited because we get to travel. We got to travel over to England. Got to play at Twickenham Stadium, and it was before the Barbarians, I think, were taking on another team, and we played after it. So the stadium was like packed, but then as soon as we sort of came out, it started emptying out. So the nerves were there, but then it sort of like, yeah, sort of went away after that. But it was an amazing experience to be playing at such a huge stadium, and yeah, my first international match overseas. Yeah, I was just excited and happy.
And what did they do to celebrate your debut?
So the cappings didn't come out until a few years later, but usually after someone debuted back then, we usually had a team circle, and we just went around with the newly debuted people, how they felt, what they were, how they found the game, and yeah, just really talking about their experience, and just yeah, pretty much the team discussion about how you felt and congratulating us as debuts.
What was your best test for the Black Ferns?
My best test, as in
Oh, just in performance, or one you enjoyed the most? Yeah.
I guess I think maybe it was just going to the 2014 World Cup.
Mm.
I know that we didn't win it, and it was sort of a disappointing result. But for me, being able to perform or go to a World Cup, 15's World Cup, and my mum being able to come and watch me play as well, that was probably a cool experience to have. Yeah.
What were the learnings that the Black Ferns learnt from that World Cup experience? Because they'd never sort of experienced that before in their history in women's rugby.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it just came down to we ended up having to rely on other teams' results to see if that would get us through to playoffs and things like that. And I guess it's not leaving things to the last minute. Yeah, and I guess Black Ferns have always sort of made it to those final two teams and always come away with the win. So having that loss, I guess, made them take a look at what we were doing, how we can develop more as in women's rugby, because of I guess they were able to do it with what they had. What more could we be doing to secure or cement as the rest of the world has been developing in their countries to keep women's rugby in New Zealand on top? I guess it made them have a look at what we were doing in that space. Mm.
Who were some of the players that were mentors for you in your time with the Black Ferns test side?
Yeah, I guess Rebecca Mani was a pretty big one there for me, going through international rugby and also being home to help me through my younger years. Um, I always was amazed and looked up to Carla Hohepa. She was an amazing athlete and someone that I aspired to be like, just her performance, her speed, her agility. She was an amazing person. Huriana Manuel was an amazing leader that I looked up to. She didn't need to say much, but when she did, everyone listened. She led by example, and yeah, I think it was just having those strong um, women leading the way and growing the women's game that sort of helped me want to pursue rugby and to keep playing. And yeah.
Now, after that World Cup, just 2 years before that actually, you played for the Sevens, Black Ferns Sevens team, with which of course you played for a number of seasons with. How cool was it to play in the World Series, seeing the world playing Sevens?
Yeah, it was a cool experience. It it was ended up being a full time job, and I guess I didn't see it as a job. You wake up every morning and you get to live out a dream. You get to play the sport that you love. You get to train, and yeah, I think I've rugby's given me so many opportunities that I never thought I'd ever get to experience. Seeing some amazing places, as well as getting to play a sport that I love. Um, yeah, I'm so grateful to have been able to do that for so long. It can be a tough environment mentally and challenging, but at the end of the day, um, you know, I wouldn't change anything. Yeah.
Now, 2014 was a tough year injury-wise for you. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I did my ACL, preparing for Sevens Nationals back then, and we were all fighting for contracts and things. Yeah, and then so I got decontracted after I done my ACL, and then so I had to find a job to support myself and things like that in 2015. Got surgery to repair my ACL, and that time, I got a job at Hamilton Girls High School, which was lucky enough through Mari Gordon. Yeah, and then did my rehab and was teaching at the same time, and managed to get through rehab and get back out on the field. And at the end of the year, they had nationals again and managed to pick up a training contract in 2016. So, yeah, was out for a year and then managed to get back out on the field.
Hamilton Girls High School you mentioned, of which there was 1 year, I think you were there in 2021, where there was a few Black Ferns that came out in that time.
2021.
I think the Black Fern Sevens that came through that system at the school.
Oh yeah, I was there for 2015 and 2016.
15, yep.
Yeah, and I was yeah, there was a few girls coming through their senior year and are now in the current Black Fern Seven squad. Yeah, but it's bred a lot of talented rugby players, that school. And I actually was Tasman Hoston's maths teacher back then.
Now, when you were recalled, you achieved what a lot of New Zealanders want to do, which is to go to the Olympics. But this was unique. It was the first time rugby sevens had been at the Olympic Games in Rio, and the team finished second at the Olympics that year. Tell us about the experience of being part of the first ever sevens tournament at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, it was a pretty unreal experience, given that I was welcomed back into the squad in 2016 on a training contract as well as teaching. So it was a different sort of experience for me. But then getting invited back into camps and having, I guess, that goal of always wanting to go to an Olympic Games in my mind, there was nothing else that I wanted to do. So having that balance for me was, I think, the biggest part of achieving my goal. But then when the call finally came and that I had made it, I was shocked. I was over the moon. I couldn't wait to tell my family, and just it was an unreal experience. And then finally getting over to Olympics, and being amongst the village, amongst the other athletes, competing. I don't know how to really explain it. It's like, it's different, and then going into the where everyone eats, the dining area, and then seeing Serena Williams sort of like getting her food. It's outrageous. You never ever think of things like that. So, no, I enjoyed it. It was probably a highlight of my rugby career. And especially being a part of the first rugby sevens team to attend an Olympic Games.
2018 was another successful year, the Commonwealth Games. Would you consider that to be your biggest success in rugby sevens or in rugby in general?
Yeah, the Com Games and the World Cup was probably 2018 was probably my most successful year in the sevens squad, attending majority of the World Series tournaments as well as a World Cup and a Commonwealth Games medal. Yeah.
In that sevens program, who have been some of the mentors that have guided you in that sevens career, coaching or playing?
So there's been a few. Alan Bunting was our first assistant coach who went into our head coach after the Rio Olympics. He was a huge mentor for me. He is now the director of Black Ferns 15s, I think it is now.
That's right, yeah.
So he's done so much for women's rugby as well as for players like myself, and the belief that he gives to players and helps them through believing in themselves and just being their authentic self. And there's also the likes of Edwin Cocker. He's now the assistant coach of the Black Fern Sevens, and he's my brother-in-law, but he would often take me through extras and help me to be a better sevens player, giving me tips here and there, taking me for extra running sessions to get me to where I needed to be, and always open for me to ask questions. Crystal Koa, she's the Chiefs and done lots for women's rugby in New Zealand. She took me under her wing when I was trying to prepare and make that Olympic squad as well. So I've had some pretty awesome mentors and people who have taken me under their wing, helped me to get where I needed to be, and have been instrumental in where I've gone in rugby.
Huddy Hui tells me you might be starting up a sevens team at Whitby. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I think he said he was going to help or something too.
Yeah. So as well as sevens, you've also played for Waikato at Paremata Cup level. What was it like playing for Waikato compared to Wellington?
I've played for a few FPC teams, just given that I've moved to lots of different places. But Waikato, Bay of Plenty, Wellington. It's different, but I think like I've been around a while to know that not much really changes in those sorts of environments. Like I think the Bay of Plenty have got an awesome academy up there, support and the things that they're doing in that space, in incorporating girls, women into their rugby academies was really cool to see. I haven't spent much time down here since I last was a 17-year-old, I guess, amongst this environment. So I'm keen to sort of see where it's going and what's happening down here and foresee what Fossey's been doing in the Wellington region for women's rugby.
Have you made yourself available for the Wellington Pride this season?
Yes, I have. I've made myself available. And yeah, I guess it's just now I just enjoy playing. It's for the enjoyment. It keeps me on my toes. I still have so much love and passion for the game. And my body's holding out, so I'm sort of thinking that why not?
You had a 2-week bye with Paremata-Plimmerton in the Izzy Ford Cup, and I saw you hobbling around last week. You're playing a bit of rugby league too, aren't you?
Oh yeah, the girls in Paremata are pretty good, and they cross codes, and so in my weekend, rather than having a break, I sort of get bored, so they said come along and have a jam. So I thought, oh, why not? So no, I managed to debut for the Valkyries, and just a bit of fun.
And how have you found playing league compared to union? What do you find is the big difference?
Oh, there's a lot different. Fitness, I was blowing. The ball placement, playing the ball, that's probably one of the hardest things I found. A lot more physical, but again, I'm still learning the game, and rather than chasing things around like a headless chicken, I sort of just need to calm down a little bit. But yeah, nah, I'm enjoying learning a new game and the challenges that come with it, and yeah, the rugby league space is getting quite big as well. So.
What do you believe has been your best ever try you've scored in rugby union?
Oh. It's rugby union. I can't remember.
It's probably been too many.
I'm
So.
usually on the wing, and I sort of just finish, and then they just pass me the ball, and I just on the end of things. So.
Well, there were 2 tries in Super Rugby this year. You scored pretty at the stadium. They were pretty good 2 tries, weren't they?
Oh yes. I think they were only 2 tries of the season.
Yeah. Now we mentioned Super Rugby Aupiki. It's been around for a few years now. Will this continue to help grow the women's game?
Yeah, I think it's a good start, and it shows that it gets competitive out there and develop game. I guess it is quite a short season, so being able to see it lengthen or what other plans they have in store for it, just to get bigger and better. I think it's a good start, but where it's going to, will be interesting to see.
The Wellington women's finals have been played at a neutral venue this weekend at William Jones Park. Do you think it's a bit disappointing you won't be able to play the final at Ngāti Toa?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess the Petone as well is sort of disappointed that they can't hold their final there either. Yeah, I'm not too sure the reasons why or what's happening there, but it would have been cool to play around our sponsors and our supporters, and yeah, it would have been cool to give back that way.
So this Saturday, the final game in the Izzy Ford Cup. It's the final. You're playing the combined Pōneke Old Boys University team on Saturday. Thoughts on this game? Since we already mentioned the team's already had a 2-week break.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, but I know the girls are raring to go. We've been putting in the hard yards at training, and this week's going to be especially important. We played Pōneke in our 2 weeks ago, and it was a really tough game. So I know that they're going to be strong. They're going to be fast. They're coming off 2 games that they've already played. So we've had 2 weeks off physicality wise. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one. It's not going to be easy. The Pōneke girls have shown that they are competitive and they're willing to give us a challenge and go for that trophy as well. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. Looking forward to it.
Shakira, it's been great having you on the Huddy Hui. All the best this weekend for the final.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was a great interview with Shakira Baker, and you know, a player that's achieved a hell of a lot in a short space of time in New Zealand rugby, and to win a silver medal at the Olympics is a fantastic achievement, and then to win a World Cup as well with the Sevens. So it's great working with Shakira at Whitby Collegiate, and hope her team goes well this Saturday. And speaking about finals footy, we're into it now, and it's the women's section of the competition that have their finals, and we are bringing you those live on Huddy Sports YouTube in partnership with Wellington Rugby Football Union and Etu Whānau, who are the sponsors of the women's competition. We have the 2 women's finals on. The first one, of course, Shakira is playing in, which of course is the Paremata-Plimmerton versus the combined Porniki versus OBU team. That will be at 11 a.m. and our coverage of that will start from 10:45 on Huddy Sports YouTube. And then the big game, the Passi Memorial Trophy, the unbeaten Petone side against Oriental Rongotai from 1:30 p.m. And this game is going to be a real beauty. Ori's have got some players back that could make an impressive difference. Both those games being played out at William Jones Park in Wainui-a-Mata this Saturday. So just a reminder, folks, the Izzy Ford final between Paremata-Plimmerton and the combined Porniki OBU side is at 11 a.m. And then the Te Passi Petone Ponies versus Oriental Rongotai is at 1:30 p.m. Can Petone go all the way undefeated, or all Ori's cause an upset? They've been in these finals a lot of time, and they do know how to win them, but Petone have been dynamite this season. So we're bringing you both those games on Huddy Sports this Saturday. Well, also speaking of which, it is also the penultimate round, round 12 of the Swindale Shield. The top 8 is pretty much secure. We are just deciding who will finish where in the top 8 heading into the Jubilee and Garden-Bach Cup sections. So let's have a look at the first game this Saturday. As the Avalon Wolves take on Northern United from Fraser Park. Avalon still winless. Norths, of course, not a great result against Tawa last week at home. But with the tragic news of Connor Garden-Bachop, Norths will definitely step up for this game. And I'm going to go Norths to win this one. Our next game, of course, this game's always been a beauty over the years, is Mara St. Pat's taking on the top of the table Old Boys University fighting Billy Goats, and they're on real form at the moment, Old Boys University. They seem to be unstoppable. Mara St. Pat's have had a few injuries over the last few weeks, but at home they've proved to be a challenge. But going to go OBU on this one. They just seem to be in good form at the moment. Johnsonville versus Wainui-a-Mata. Johnsonville, well, they lost to Porniki at home last week, and it really sort of has been a tough toil. You know, they've lost roughly last 5 games, and 3 of those they lost in the last minute. So Johnsonville will be hoping at home they can hold out Wainui-a-Mata, who have really improved as the season's gone on, and have proven to be a real challenge for a lot of teams. I'm going to still stick with the Hawks on this one. I think the Hawks have got something there, and they'll be hoping that the second round is more favourable for them as they venture towards the Garden-Bach Cup section. Next up is another beauty of a match out at Lyndhurst Park. It has got to be the Upper Hutt Rams having to travel out to Lyndhurst Park to take on Tawa. Tawa with an impressive win last week over Norths, and Upper Hutt, well, they're currently sitting 3rd on the table. They're going pretty well indeed. But I'm going to go Tawa on this one because Lyndhurst Park at this time of the year can be a bit of a fortress when the ground gets a bit heavy, and they know how to win there too as well, do the Wolfpack. So I'm going to go Tawa on that one. Next up is Wellington versus Oriental Rongotai. Now, Axman caused nearly an almighty upset, much to the nearly surprisement of Erin Rush, who messaged us during the McBain Shield last week. She was hoping the Axman might be able to go back-to-back with wins. However, they fell short against Paremata-Plimmerton. They're at home at Hotono Park against Oriental Rongotai, who will be looking forward to trying to cement a top 4 finish in these 2 rounds to go. I'm going to go Oriental Rongotai in this one because they've got the front row power there and the forwards to do the job. Next up is Huddy Boys Maris versus Porniki. Both these teams lost last week. Oh, no, actually, sorry, I got that wrong. Porniki won last week, so apologies to our Porniki watchers. But Huddy Boys Maris had a loss in the McBain. That's 3 McBain losses in a row too, of which they've been lost in very similar circumstances. So the Eagles back at home at the Hutt Rec will be hoping to bounce back after that disappointing McBain Shield loss to Petone. And I'm going to stick with the Eagles here on this one. But Porniki, of course, no doubt, Fast Track will put up an almighty fight. Also, and this is the other game we're covering on Huddy Sports this weekend, it is going to be Petone versus Paremata-Plimmerton. And Petone at home at the Petone Rec, of course, and hopefully TJ Clark's playing. He can play against his brother Sam, the battle of the Clarks. Sam won it last year, when Paremata-Plimmerton trounced Petone out at Ngāti Toa Domain. Petone will be looking to continue on their fine form, and it's another reason to celebrate for Petone. This Saturday is it's Lossie Filippo's 50th game for the Villagers, and what fine form he was on last weekend with his midfield partner Vilamana Fine in the midfield for the Villagers. This one is going to be an almighty clash. I'll be back from the Izzy Ford Cup to commentate this game, and I'm going to stick with Petone here because despite the fact that they have a lot of players out, they may get some Hurricanes back. Who knows? They might be rested for another week, but let's hope not. But I'm going to go Petone in this one because I believe that they can do the job and cement second place, and they just have to play Pōneke away at Kilbini Park next week for the Swindale Shield. First 15 rugby. Yesterday, St. Pat's Silverstream versus Rangatai College. It was 73-0 to Silverstream yesterday in that first 15. Traditional, we did cover that game. Unfortunately, we didn't have any commentators available, all too busy. But Silverstream responded in kind after their disappointing loss to Wellington College. So they bounced back in style. Wellington College, of course, have to travel out to St. Bernard's College this Saturday. And if anything's going to the history books, before they went to quad, they played St. Bernard's and they lost. And they're going to quad next week in Nelson. Different St. Bernard's side this season, and I think Wellington College will do the job out there at St. Bernard's. Quad next week, of course, Wellington College playing Nelson first up at Nelson. That will be a tough one. And, of course, Christ and Whanganui Collegiate will play the other opener as well. Adam Julian's got to be down there watching those games, so no doubt we'll get some reports from him. The other first 15 game on is Wairarapa versus Scots. Parapara Umu versus Hutt International Boys School, and this one, well, Tawa versus Town. In the grading games, Tawa won. They beat Town. Now they play each other again out at Tawa. Who's going to win that game? Town. Big win over Scots 2 weeks ago, and seem to have found their straps, have the Catholics, so maybe Town win it. Who Tawa knows? It might all depend on the weather, because that Tawa field can be pretty heavy, so we'll see what happens in those games in first 15 competition. Well, as always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Mike Pinfold Plumbing and Drain Laying Limited and Louise Reddy of New Zealand Travel Brokers. If you need any plumbing or drain laying work or some advice as you head overseas during the winter school holidays, give Mike Pinfold and Louise Reddy a call. They're always there for your help. And as always, we're always on the lookout here for sponsors just to keep us going, etc. We help to pay our cameraman and to keep all what we do free and live on YouTube for you all. So head to huddysports.co.nz or to huddysportsnz@gmail.com or find us on our social medias. That's Facebook and Instagram. You'll be able to find us on there. Well, that has been the 115th episode of the Huddy Hui. Many thanks to Adam Julian for coming on earlier in the show to reflect on the passing on Connor Garden-Bachop, and yet again our condolences to his family and friends and to the Northern United Club. Many thanks to Shakira Baker for being our guest on the Hui. We're back on Wednesday next week. I had a prior appointment Wednesday this week that I couldn't get out of. But next week we've already got our guest sorted for episode 116. He is the hooker for Huddle Boys Marist. Harry Press will be our guest on the Hui as they head into the final round of the Swindale Shield next week. So that is the Huddy Hui for tonight. Reminder, folks, 3 games this Saturday. The 2 women's finals out at William Jones Park and Petone versus Paremata-Plimmerton. Those games will be live on Huddy Sports YouTube. So it's been a pleasure being with you all tonight. I'm Brad Hudson. Ciao for now.